thank you for clicking for today's video. Hi, my name is Aries and I'm your online BFF for today. And if you're not new and my return subscribers, thank you so much for clicking my video again and again. So yeah. Alright, today we are going to talk something interesting, okay? And I'm wearing my blue Smurf hoodie. It's blue. And oh, by the way, this is not a raincoat, so because I realize some of you say this looks like a raincoat and why am I wearing it, but actually it is not a raincoat, it is a hoodie. All right, so there's a difference. Okay, there's a difference. And I bought this from Uniqlo, so it's my precious hoodie, blue hoodie that I have. Okay, yeah, so today's topic is, let me say something that might sound strange at first. I know you must have been seeing this title before. You can see, yes, you can see. I just want to say that you are abnormal. You are abnormal, okay? Not in a bad way, not in a broken way, okay? So, but you know, in a way that most people don't understand, because if you ever felt like you don't fit in, your thoughts are too deep, your emotions are too intense, you see the world differently than everyone else, then yeah, you probably are abnormal, you know. But here's the truth nobody tells you. Being different has always felt like a problem until it becomes your strength, you know. So remember, normal is not real. Okay, let's get one thing straight. Normal is an illusion. It doesn't actually exist. It is just a social agreement people use to define what is familiar to them. But history shows something important. The people who changed the world were never considered normal in their time. They were too curious, too emotional, you know, too ambitious, you know, too quiet, too loud, too intense, too different than everyone else. At some point, society always labels outliers as weird, you know. Wait, let me just, yeah, it's kind of itchy here, so I need to like, yeah, okay. So yeah, they label outliers as weird, you know, until later they call them genius, you know. So maybe the word abnormal isn't an insult, you know. Maybe it is just a part of recognition of someone who doesn't fit average thinking. So if you ever feel different, there's a reason for you. Okay, there's a reason. You'll probably notice things of other people ignore. You think deeper than most conversations allow. You feel things more intensely, you know. You question things others accept easily and all, and that can feel isolating because most people don't talk about that. Most people talk about distractions. So when you live in a deeper mental world that the people around you, you start feeling disconnected, not because something is wrong with you, but because you are operating on a different layer of awareness. And that is the difference. Can feel like loneliness, but it can also become clarity, you know. So let's be honest, being abnormal doesn't always feel empowering. At first it feels heavy. You question yourself, you know. Why don't I think like others? Why can't I fit in easily? Why do I feel so much right now? Why am I so emo and all? And sometimes you try to suppress it. Why? You try to act normal like everyone else. You try to blend in. You try to shrink yourself just to fit the stereotypes that they have or the society norm that they have built. Because fitting in feels safer than standing out, you know. But every time you suppress who you are, you lose a part of yourself, and slowly you feel even more disconnected because you are not meant to abandon your nature. You are meant to understand it. Okay, so what if your abnormality is not a weakness, but it is actually a sensitivity? So what if your overthinking, your overthinking is not a confusion? It's not. But it is actually is an awareness. Okay? So what if your emotional depth is not instability, but it has actually is a perceptions? Because sometimes society labels as too much, is actually too aware, too thoughtful, too reflective, too human. And the world doesn't always know how to handle that, so it tries to normalize you, to flatten you, to make sure that you shrink yourself, to make yourself easier to understand by everyone else. Okay, but you are not meant to be flattened, that's first. Okay, you are meant to be understood by the right people. Okay, so there's a hidden cost to trying to be normal. You start doubting your instinct, hiding your thoughts, ignoring your emotions, disconnect yourself from people, and you disconnect yourself from yourself too. Then over time you lose clarity about who you really are. And that's why so many people feel empty, even when their life looks fine on the outside, because they built a versions of themselves that fits in but doesn't feel like them. And that disconnect is exhausting. Being yourself might feel risky, but pretending to be someone else is far more draining in long-term wise. Okay, the world moves forward because of people who think differently, not because they fit in, but because they don't fit in. Innovations doesn't come from normal thinking. Art doesn't come from normal emotions. Change doesn't come from comfort. It comes from people, who question, feel deeply, challenge the patterns, and refuse to accept things that doesn't serve them right. So the very thing that make you feel isolated might actually be what you make, what makes you impactful in the future. Your difference is not a random, it might be a direction for you, redirections of your life. So maybe you have spent too long trying to fix yourself, trying to become more normal, becomes less intense, easier to understand and all, and you became less like you. But what if you don't need a fixing actually? What if you just need understanding instead? Understanding yourself more, because not everything uncomfortable is wrong sometimes. Sometimes it is just undeveloped yet. So your depth doesn't need to be removed, it needs a directions. So your emotions don't need suppressions, they just need express. So your thoughts don't need to be silenced all the time, they just need a clarity. That's it. So let's return to it. That's it. Let's return into it. You are abnormal, but maybe that's not a bad thing. It just means that you see more than the rest, you feel more than the rest, you think more, you question more that nobody else want to. So, and that can feel overwhelming sometimes, but it can also become the powerful tool for you, because the world doesn't need more identical people. It needs people who think differently enough to create something else. So instead of asking why am I not normal and all, maybe start asking yourself, what is my difference that trying to turn me into